Welcome back. Well, joining us now to trawl through the Sunday papers is the City Press editor, Mr. Mondli Makhanya. Mondli, festive greetings. Happy 2019. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy 2019 to you. May it be a brilliant one.
And of course, you have your lead this morning. It says Cyril's tough Zuma puzzle. The Sunday Times, of course, says that Cyril has effectively ring-fenced Zuma. Take us through your lead story this morning.
Well, I mean, like, it's one of those Sundays where the main Sunday papers actually, it's virtually the same story.
Yes.
Basically, I mean, like, it is the big conundrum, basically, that Cyril faces, this Zuma albatross. And the fact that Zuma is still very much present in our lives and very much present in Cyril's life, and was very much apparent this past week. And in the build-up to the January 8th statement and the launch of the manifesto, as you know, there were indications that there may be disruptions, and the ANC tried to contain that, and sort of people tried to contain it. But I think it was most apparent during the week when all the events where Zuma actually was, even if he was not there, people were chanting his name, people were singing his songs and letting Cyril know that this is the man who still recognizes our leader. Forget about Nasrec. What happened in Nasrec doesn't really matter to us. And it does pose a challenge to Cyril. I mean, like, he is in charge of the state, he is in charge of the ANC, but there's a very strong bloc in the ANC that still does not want to recognize that Nasrec happened.
But isn't it interesting, Mondli, because although, I mean, so Cyril is now in kind of enemy territory, right? Nobody actually boos him, nobody embarrasses him. He's able to say some pretty tough things. I mean, I think it was a gala dinner on Friday night somewhere.
Yes. Saturday night.
And he went on and on at some length about, corruption in the ANC and the damage that had been done to the ANC. And he's talking to the enemy.
Yeah.
And he did the same thing yesterday in Durban at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. We've made mistakes, etc., etc. So he's not. He's being polite to Zuma. He's certainly not giving Zuma the fight that Zuma would like to have, which I think is tactically probably quite clever.
In fact, I want to add on to what Peter is saying, Mondli. In your column, you speak about Jacob Zuma and his presence in the African National Congress. But you also make the point that he's definitely not going to be on the list. I mean, the criteria for the list is absolutely clear. You must be electable, firstly, and then secondly, you can't bring the ANC into disrepute by being involved in very serious allegations. President Jacob Zuma is currently facing trial. He might face more charges out of the Zondo Commission for outsourcing his responsibility. So what do you make of the tactics of Cyril Ramaphosa in managing the Zuma factor? Pretty much like he did when President Zuma at the time refused to step down. He said, don't humiliate him. And everyone was saying, how can you say that? This man has stolen so much. He's, stolen the country, sourced it out to the Guptas. But Cyril was actually keeping his powder dry. But there was a steel fist in a velvet glove.
No, absolutely. I think he's playing a good game, and I think that we underestimate the fact that tactically he's doing it. I mean, like, and he's up against somebody who is just as, if not better, than he is at that tactical game. And I think that this week, as you point out, Peter, that it wasn't just at the Friday night dinner or at the rally. Yeah. Throughout the week, wherever he went, in the most remote areas, he kept making the same point, and he kept subtweeting that I am talking about you, Jacob Zuma. Yes. I am talking about your era, that it was a rotten era. Yeah. And even went to the Youth League rally, and he spoke as strongly about corruption as he would were he addressing anywhere else in the country. And I think that like the containment strategy that they are working on now is the best thing, because Zuma wants the fight. Yeah. Zuma wants a confrontation. His people want a confrontation. Zuma thrives on that
So does the list become the confrontation? And that's the next hurdle, right?
Well, the list, yeah, you spoke about the list. I mean, like, I think the first thing is that, okay, he probably will not want himself on the list anyway because he wants that 2.8 salary for life. I mean, like, so he won't want
so
himself.
If he becomes an MP, he loses.
Yeah, he loses.
So
basically, he's not going to want to go and sit on the benches, and he's much more. And he knows that being in the position that he's in, he can play his game much better, and he can be the rallying point because he's become the rallying point of the anti-Ramaphosa forces now, and he can do that much better than being subject to a chief whip's rules in Parliament.
We're running out of time. I wanted to refer you to the column that Ranjini Munsami wrote about Zuma's association with these populist churches outside of the kind of mainfold traditional churches, many of them now entering politics, and we see, of course, that they are in fact proxies. She warns that we shouldn't underestimate these organizations because it is tapping into some of the conservatism that you find among voters. I mean, some of these parties are talking about the return of the death penalty, they're talking about things like crime and so on. Do you think that she's right, or do you think that these parties are going to be seen exactly for what they are?
Okay, she's right and wrong. Look, I think that for the first time, actually, you have a groundswell of the conservative element that the SCDP failed to tap into.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, this is real now. It is these mass churches where the word of the leader does actually matter. But whether people will translate the word of the church leader into a political decision is another story. The ANC is a powerful brand. The ANC is in every corner of the country. The ANC still has this 25 years of being able to tell what they call the good story, the houses, the electricity, the water, and so on. And they trot it out every election. And you know what, whether we like it or not, it works to a very large extent because it is true. And there are failures here and there, and lots of failures, I'm going to say here and there. But the story works. And there's patronage. And there's the food parcels that are going to be dished out. So that matters to the ordinary person, I think, a lot more than what the church leader tells me.
I want to ask you one final question. I mean, apart from you being a political animal, I know that you are soccer crazy. There is a newspaper, one of the tabloids, that speaks about a Gupta factor in a bankrupt SAFA.
And City Press as well.
And City Press also have that story. In fact, page 2.
Buried on page 2.
Could you tell us, I mean, what corner of this country has the Guptas not penetrated? How did they get to these chaps? You
know what I found very interesting about this particular element is that this was in 2010, right at the beginning, before they even acquired the amount of power that they acquired later on, where, according to Leslie Sidibe, who was in the inside, that basically they tried to get the Guptas to finance Bafana Bafana's preparations. And that is very serious. They were in every vein of
Well, we mustn't forget they tried to do it with the South African cricket team as well. We saw a lot of South African cricketers being caught up in that Gupta network. Mondli, thank you so much for joining us. Well, that's about it for us for this week. You've had your fix. Take care and have a good day, and we'll see you next week.